Ladies and gentlemen, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people, confident that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.
And that's that. We can stand up and fight and ride all day through the night. We can make this change right and see our hopes and our dreams come to fruition. It's time to unite as one, calling out to our founding fathers. This is our mission to make you
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Humanity Awaken Radio. I'm your host Brian Bolin, and with me as always is my co-host Phil McNamara.
Hello, everybody. How are you?
And I'm stoked to be here. Last weekend we had the Super Bowl, and or as we can call it, the Illuminati halftime show.
Right.
This year they didn't do anything too crazy, but we definitely wanted to touch up on something that we noticed. And so during the halftime show, just to get right into it, so we have Coldplay coming up on stage, and nothing really crazy with Coldplay going on, except they had this, I don't know if you guys caught it, but they had this Sanskrit writing on their guitar cabinets and on the drum head. And this could be something, it could be nothing, but I noticed that it's just kind of random to have we're pretty sure it was Sanskrit because we cross-checked a lot of different ancient languages to see if anything came up, and the closest thing we found was Sanskrit, and it could just say Coldplay in Sanskrit. Who knows? It could say something else. They also had the symbol of the tree of life. Phil, you want to go a little bit into that?
Actually, it was the flower of life.
The flower of life?
Yeah, the flower of life.
Okay.
A lot of people get those confused. So, the flower of life is one of the most important symbols in the world right now. If you haven't seen it, just Google it. Flower of life. There's millions of images of it all over the world. It's one of those. It's one of the original images. It's the image that captures everything in the universe is made up of this specific symbol, and it starts out as the egg of life, and then it splits into the vesica Pisces, which is two concentric circles, and then it splits off from there, and then it creates the flower of life. If you've ever heard of Drunvalo Melchizedek, he has a book. He has 2 volumes of the ancient secret of the flower of life, which I haven't read yet, but it's in my queue to read. It's really heady stuff. But that image has been seen all over the world, and I mean really in pretty much every culture. If you look it up, you'll see that it's every place, and it's very powerful. Everything in the universe is made up of this symbol and made up of what that energy is, and it's a very powerful piece. And I just found it really odd that it was in the halftime show.
Yeah, and let's be clear, nothing in that halftime show is in there by mistake. When you have millions and millions and millions of people tuning in to watch, nothing's there by mistake. It's all very much on purpose. That's what kind of threw me off with Coldplay, with the Sanskrit writing. It's like what? Why would they have an ancient writing on their stage performance that obviously the majority of the world cannot read?
And most people wouldn't be able to see.
Think about it. The Super Bowl is all about ads, constantly. Like, how are you going to advertise something in ancient writing that nobody can read? Not to mention, it wasn't even featured. It was kind of almost subconsciously in the background. They never had a close up on it on the camera, but my eyes noticed it because obviously, I mean, when I was watching it, I was looking for all the subconscious things, like any symbolism, anything at all. And so when they get on stage, you see they start the camera as an aerial view looking down on the stage. And they did that purposely so that you could see the flower of life that showed up on the for the stage design. And something else with the flower of life that I also want to bring up too is it is also on, for all you music fans out there, the cover of Bring Me the Horizon Sempiternal album. That it's a very beautiful design, and yeah, I like their cover, the way that they did it. It looks really nice. But as far as Coldplay's performance and my prediction of them, you know, possibly if they show anything that they're going to the dark side, I did not see any evidence of that, so I am not going to try and say that that came true or whatever. But it was just a prediction, and you know, I'm glad they didn't. You know, the last thing I want to see is like more bands getting corrupted and co-opted into this Illuminati music industrial complex,
right?
Which is you know, a term that, you know, we're trying to use more frequently. And hint, hint, we will have a free live stream coming up very soon in the next couple weeks on the Illuminati music industrial complex.
It's going to blow your minds, you guys. Seriously.
Seriously.
The more I learned about this, and Brian really got me into this more than anybody else, and now the more I see into this, the more I realize how much of this is being co-opted, and it's stunning, you guys. You're not going to believe what we found.
It's just so in your face, blatant with music more than anything else. Once you see it and once you know the origination of where the symbols come from, your mind is seriously going to be blown. And these aren't like theories. These are the type of thing where when you see, we're going to have a video presentation of it. So when you see the PowerPoint and you see the pictures that go along with what we're saying, you can't not see what we're saying. It's not conjecture. It's not a matter of personal opinion on how different people view things. It's very black and white.
In fact, I'll go so far. You know, it's so weird. We were actually just sitting here before we started the show, watching a video of a new band that's coming up, and we'll talk about that in the live stream. But while we were watching their video, boom, there's a symbol, and it was both of us like just jumped back.
And I missed it the first time.
Yeah, it was just stunning that it was right in our face. And,
one of the hand symbols.
Yeah, and I'm actually doing some research on some of the older stuff because I'm older, but yeah, it's, you know, I was really kind of expecting.
What Phil means by that is like that more music from the 60s.
Yeah, I mean, you know, classic rock and stuff like that. But yeah, the thing that was really interesting to me about the halftime show really was the fact that there wasn't as much symbolism in it as I thought there would be. It was sort of focused more on Beyonce's, you know, all Black Lives Matter, sort of Malcolm X-y thing. So that was.
Let's hear more about that.
Okay, so yeah, the image was, she came out in an outfit, in a gold and black outfit. The outfit resembled what Michael Jackson wore when he did his halftime show a few years ago. I think it was 2009.
To me, it occurred as a ritual.
Okay, all right. Well, we can. Yeah, I didn't think of that at the time, but then when you pointed it out, I was like, oh, okay, it could be that too. And then I guess her dancers came out in outfits that resembled some of the stuff that the Black Panthers wore in the 60s. And by the way, the Black Panthers were not an occult group. They were actually a group that was trying to get some of the civil rights stuff in. They were the angry arm of the civil rights, really, was what it was. And they actually did a lot of really good things. And so I'm not advocating that one way or the other. I know that because of all of the recent things that have been going on with police officers shooting unarmed black youth, and the whole subculture of incarceration of young black people, in this country, it sort of was a huge piece of, in your face, we're not going to take it anymore kind of symbolism from Beyonce, which I have to give her a lot of credit for. So, that was kind of what my takeaway from it was. But what were you going to talk about with the symbolism that you found, Brian?
Okay, so some of the things that I noticed in Beyonce's performance were she comes out in the outfit, and right off the bat, the first thing that I see is she has a gold X on her. And we know that the X is another form of symbology for another form of symbol for the mark of the beast. And also the gold in alchemy represents transmutation. So what do those two things mean? I mean, those came up to me instantly when I saw them. And we also noticed that she's pregnant too. And so that, things are swarming around in my mind as far as like, does this have something to do with like in regards to her baby, like her. Besides, let's just go with Mark of the Beast. I mean, it's like let's say she's trying to put in everyone's head subconsciously the Mark of the Beast is cool and trendy because that's a huge Luciferian agenda. Like, it has to be cool to the youth to accept the Mark of the Beast. And there's Mark of the Beast imagery too in the new Call of Duty game. The new Call of Duty game, there's in the zombies mode, basically there's a way for. Well, first off, in the campaign mode, you're given this like RFID chip, this like nano chip that basically it goes into your pineal gland. It goes to the center of your forehead, and that's where it lives. And you become part machine, part human, which is transhumanism. And then in the zombies gameplay mode, they encourage you to turn into the beast to fight against the zombies, and it's just wild. So those two things are being put into the public consciousness right now. Basically, like, it's cool, it's trendy, accept the Mark of the Beast. Also, too, Google Glasses. I mean, that's eventually going to just get into, like, oh, this is beta for the RFID chip in your skin, under your, who knows, right in where your pineal gland is. You'll never need to carry credit cards again.
There's
you
actually
can pay for things with this.
There was actually a company that I believe there was a corporation that already started chipping its employees, and everybody. The video that I saw of it, and I'll try and find it. I'll try to put it on our Facebook page if I can find the video again. And the people are happy, peppy employees. Look how happy we are, just being chipped and everything's great, and it looks like a commercial for let's get this done. It's very unsettling, and I remember seeing that. I saw it about 2 months ago.
It will be put upon us as a trendy thing, and I guarantee you it'll come out with Apple or Google eventually. But also, too, what you're saying, like, I saw something for this 2 years ago in Middle Eastern countries where owners of like strip clubs are going out to the bars where everyone's partying and encouraging tourists to come in and say, hey, like really drunk tourists, like, hey man, like if you come we'll give you free entry to the strip club if you get chipped. All you gotta do is allow us to insert this chip into your arm, and you can get in for free. And
That's
people
terrifying.
do it. Yeah, and I mean, we already have chippings for our animals.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just a matter of time before they're gonna push that on us. And if we go to a full digital cashless society, which is definitely part of the plan, I don't know if it's gonna work in the way that they want it to. We're gonna need a new currency no matter what. That's just like the way I see it.
Well, yeah, it's all falling apart, and we're seeing more and more signs of this. It's going to start in Europe, and the collapse of the economy, and it's sort of getting off topic a little bit, but it's definitely happening. The oil prices are dropping like a stone. Several of the large banks in Germany, Deutsche Bank and HBC and some of the HSBC, I think they're called, are posting huge losses right now in their stock. And so...
And the negative interest
that I didn't even know existed until I saw it on the Stillness in the Storm web blog. And then suddenly it was like, oh, okay, it's something coming out of Zero Hedge. And so when I started reading out on Zero Hedge, I was like, okay, I understand a little bit about this. I'm not really a financial wizard anyway. So I was like, it's just numbers to me. But yeah, we're definitely moving toward a cashless society, no doubt.
Just to preface this, the last thing we want to do is get people in fear when we talk about this stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
financial collapse, talking about the mark of the beast, some really heavy stuff, and like, for anyone researching this stuff in just going on YouTube to find random videos on this is all you're gonna see.
Yes.
Nephilim, mark of the beast,
Nibiru.
financial collapse,
Yeah.
Nibiru, this is happening at the end of the world, and blah 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 blah. I highly encourage you not to watch any of those videos. And like, because
Really,
all they do
please.
is get you in fear. And I want to really preface that we're not talking about this to get you in fear. I think it's part of our awakening and spiritual process. You can't have that next step of like awakening and not allowing their consent. I mean, us not having consent for what they're doing if you're awakened to it and you understand what's really going on behind the scenes. And also, too, financial collapse, I think that's a really negative word. It's actually our financial solution.
Yeah, let me rephrase that then. Instead of financial collapse, let's use the term financial restructuring, because that's really what's happening, and it's going to feel like a collapse, but it's not really a collapse, because it really isn't going to be. It's going to be something very, very positive, where hopefully, and from what I'm understanding from the sources that I've been talking to, at the end of it, there's going to be a jubilee. There's going to be a forgiveness of debt around the world.
We need this to happen to get out of the control clutches of the Federal Reserve.
Absolutely, and we're already starting to see that starting to happen. It's really, countries are bailing out of the dollar and bailing out of the petrodollar and the cabal-controlled central banks, and so we're going to see a change in the next year or so. I would suspect it'll probably be in the next at least 48 months. So don't be surprised when it happens, and don't freak out. It's really a good thing, and it really will be okay.
But they will spin this as much as they can to make it seem like the worst thing that's ever happened in the history of America or the world or history itself. But it's just another psyop.
Yeah.
Like this whole financial collapse, fear, blah, 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 ISIS, blah, blah. It's all psy warfare to keep us confined and not aware of what's really going on, of the stuff we're talking about, like the Illuminati music industrial complex, or
Right.
UFOs, or whatever it is, GMOs, like all this stuff is there's a war going on right now behind the scenes between what we're calling the Cabal or the Illuminati and this resistance faction, this alliance that Corey Good has been talking about. And I felt this, I felt like even if it's not real, like, or wasn't real a couple of years ago, I think that by so many people believing it has created a force which has allowed the universe to come together to fight against these people, because there's factions in the evil side of people that are going to the good side.
Yeah.
And that's the important thing to look at it with it, because it sounds all mystical, fairy like to think that like there's just going to be some group to overthrow them, or like ET's going to come and save us, and like, yeah, those are long shots, but we have to understand it. We're very aware that there is a negative group, and some of those people are starting not to be negative anymore, and I have a big feeling that a lot of that has to do with the consciousness shift. We have to ask ourselves, like, supposedly whistleblowers and people are saying that we're moving into this more highly charged active place in the galaxy, or in our cosmos.
Yeah.
And we're moving, think of, like, time is cyclical, but the way that I view it, and the easiest way to say this, is that the way our solar system moves is from the beginning of the Big Bang or whatever happened towards, going further out. So it's almost like a linear way if you look at it in that way. And coming closer to our central sun, there's this highly charged energy there, and it has something to do with our awakening process, and that's why so many more people are bypassing cognitive dissonance and being aware and open to this information. That's also why we have some people going from the bad side to the good side. And I'll give you a clear example of why I think this really is happening, and it's not just conjecture, and it's not just random people saying it. One, we have tons of whistleblowers saying this, and they've been saying it for the last 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
And every year it becomes more prominent. Two, blood moons. I mean, we have to ask ourselves, when the first one happened a year ago, they said there's just going to be one, and it happens every, couple hundred or 1,000 years, whatever the bullshit was that they said. And then we've had, 6 this year.
Right.
There's something going on between us and the Earth, of something that's changing the color of the moon and the way that we see it from the Earth. For it to happen so many times in the last year, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
There's something happening there.
Absolutely. And what we also have to realize is that the consciousness shift doesn't just affect us.
We're seeing physical ramifications of it now.
We're seeing physical ramifications of it. We're seeing it in our climate. We're seeing it in the way people are shifting. There's a lot more. And the reason
All
why
the
people
fog's
are
gone
having...
over LA.
Right.
You can see downtown LA perfectly, and you could never have seen that 5-10 years ago.
Right.
There's
And
something happening.
And also one thing too, just so you guys are aware, this consciousness shift affects everyone, whether they are negative or positive.
Yeah.
And everybody has the opportunity to change their spots. I'm not saying that the negative people or the negative ETs are always going to be negative. They may actually turn out to change as well. I've had a very large spiritual awakening in the last 15 years. And so I was not always the most wonderful person in the world, but I've learned how to work in a different area. So now, and my energy has changed, and I feel it. I've actually, in the last maybe year and a half, there has been a huge shift in my life. There's been a huge shift in my heart. And so I know if it's happening to me, it has to be happening to other people.
And I like looking at this in the way that David Wilcock does, and the way he explains this now you have this new set of crazy information. How do you move forward and how you interact in the world with this?
Right.
You can either be afraid and run around like a chicken with your head cut off, hide under your pillow, under your sheets from the wicked Illuminati.
Right.
Or you could just see them for, the puppets that they are, and understand that all they're trying to do is hide. This is a spiritual warfare battle, and all they're trying to hide from us is love. Embracing love and being more loving to others. Everything they do is to invert love, invert peace with their symbols and all this stuff, and to create chaos, order out of chaos.
Yeah.
Novus Ordo Seclorum.
Yeah, there you go.
And that's their whole plan. And the second you bypass that, they're going to go to some easier victim. They're not going to try and focus on you anymore,
Right, exactly.
And it's just if just we're more kind and loving and live that lifestyle, it's a lifestyle change.
It really is. And
It's just coming back
my
to the
God.
roots of spirit.
Yes, that's
who
what
we
the whole point
should
of
be.
being here is.
Yes.
The whole point of being on this planet is,
I'm not saying you have to be perfectly good.
No, not at all.
Like as Wilcox says, as long as you're 51% more positive than negative, you're on the right timeline for this consciousness shift.
Right. And everybody thinks they have to have this giant awakening. It just simply doesn't have to be that way. It can be it's a very subtle change. And it's just a matter of thinking, better of yourself and better of the world around you. And that's the consciousness shift that starts to happen. And if we have a lot of people moving that way, then we're going to have all of this stuff is going to come to fruition a lot faster than it has been.
Well said, Phil.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, all right, let's get into part 2 of our experiences. Because that's what this episode is mainly going to be about. Although I really did like that intro.
Yeah, I did too. And also,
I just want
to say something too. I pretty much talked about everything that had happened to me, but the stuff that you're going to hear coming from Brian right now is stuff that I haven't even heard. So I'm going to probably be reacting to it in real time, so you guys are going to hear me, gasp and say things and be very much a part of very, very interactive in this because I'm fascinated by these experiences. And honestly, I'll preface this again. If you're having some sort of an extraterrestrial experience, be it negative or positive, please post it on our Facebook page or post it underneath this video because we want to hear about that from you. So please. So Brian, with that, please.
We need to create the narrative of that this isn't taboo to talk about anymore.
Yes, exactly. This is not. You're not somebody that's living in the shadows and fear anymore. Now you're going to step out into the light and say, "This is happening to me." Like I said last time in our last podcast, I never spoke about any of this stuff publicly because I was living in that fear for a long time, and now I don't anymore. And it's been a very open and relieving thing and a very cathartic moment for me to be able to bring that to you guys. So with that, Brian, why don't you talk about whatever the next thing that happened to you was?
Yeah. Well, actually, real quick, I want to preface this while it's on my mind. I want to make it clear that, yes, we are public figures, and I'm also a musician. I'm a music artist, and, that's mainly what I do and produce records. And I'm not just, a radio host on this podcast.
Right, me
and
either.
yeah, and it's like we need to come together and not just have people in the conspiracy circle or the New Age group come forward and say, I had a UFO experience. We need everyone to come forward so that this isn't taboo anymore. I am encouraging all music artists, if you've had an experience, contact me. Contact Phil on Facebook, and we'll get you on the show. We want to talk about this. Like, we'll bring you on the show. We'll promote your music. We'll have a fun talk about ETs and UFOs and your experience, and athletes,
actors,
anyone in the entertainment industry, so that people see that, like, this is real, this is happening. No more weirdness about it. It's just, let's be real. Let's be human beings, and let's just talk about what's really going on with the human race. So, on a side note, my album for my band Enter the Paradox just came out on Tuesday. And I'm just so excited about that, and I just was really excited to share that with you guys in the show. It's called Love, Loyalty, and Mayhem Part 1. It's available on iTunes and Google Play. And I'm just really excited to share that with the world, and it's getting some good response. And yeah, so I just wanted to throw that out there.
And it's brilliant.
Thank you, Phil. All right, guys, so let's get back into it. Part 2 of our UFO and ET experiences. So, let's see, where to start, where to begin. Okay, so everything I laid out before was pretty straightforward, like weird sightings, high strangeness. Now we're about to take high strangeness to a whole new level. So, let's see. Okay, let's start with this. I didn't preface this in the last episode. I said we could get back to this. The 3 a.m., 3:30 a.m., 4 a.m., remember how you said you had your experience at that time?
Yes.
That is the most common time that people experience having ET experiences. There's something about that part of the night, and that's going to have a common theme of the rest of these stories. And why don't we just start it off with that? Just as a little preface, Bob Lazar, who we talked about in our X-Files episode, who was the whistleblower that came forward, who used to work at Area 51's S4 in Groom Lake, Nevada. He described that the test flights would go on a Tuesday or Wednesday between 3 and 4 a.m. I always found that very interesting, and the more you get into the alien abduction research, or people who just had ET experiences, usually between 3 and 4 a.m. And that's also known in like occult lore of, like, that's when spirits roam, and it's the most evil time of night. And basically the way that I look at it is, I think the veil is the thinnest at that time for some reason. I don't understand why, but it just is. So my UFO experiences are happening to me around Palos Verdes area. I have a neighbor who's my buddy that I grew up with. I have 2 neighbors who I'm about to talk about. And one of my neighbors, he explained how he had 2 UFO experiences around the time when I was having mine, and I didn't even tell him that I was having these experiences. And something very interesting that he said, first off, when I would see the UFOs, when I would actually engage, I would see them, I'd say, okay, wow, I know you're there. I'm going to engage with you so that I know that you're an actual ET craft or just some kind of craft. I'm going to engage with you telepathically. And the way I always did this, and for some reason I wasn't able to even change it, but I would look at the craft, engage, and say, I see you, let's have some fun. So I look up, the craft moves up. I look to the right, the craft moves right.
Wow.
I look down, and the craft moves down. And so it was always in this order: left, right, up, down.
So
left, right, up, down. So yeah, it was always in that same order. And the craziest part about that was, like, sorry, Phil, you were gonna say something?
I was just gonna say, that sounds like your consciousness is connecting with the ship.
Possibly. Here's the craziest part about that. It wasn't just some trickery of light, because I never told anyone about that because I felt so crazy about it. I was like, I could just be believing, making this up, but I did it so many times, and I never spoke to anyone about it because I didn't want them to think I was a complete lunatic.
Right.
My buddy, he had a similar experience where he said, "Yo, yeah, man, at the Rolling Hills Golf Club course, which we live in between that, he said I would go up there around like 3:15 a.m. in the morning. A bunch of us would go over there, and like it's just really beautiful at that time, blah blah blah, and like it's kind of creepy too. And then all of a sudden we saw this craft fly over, and to be honest, I forget how he described the craft. I think he might have said it was like a triangle or something like that, black triangle, something like that, and he said it came over around 3:15.
That's weird.
And he said he also had another sighting where he was fishing and between the San Pedro Channel, in between San Pedro and Catalina, and a USO came out of the water.
Wow.
And flew, like, it was just right there. And for those who don't know, USO means unidentified submerged object. And these things were sighted all during World War II with the submarines. And we have extensive documents on these things and how fast they're going, way faster than anything we had then, probably even now. And the thing I always liked about those reports is they referred to it as knots, not like miles per hour.
Right.
Which always made it a little more creepy and real, that they were really tracking these things.
Yeah, they were.
And so, once again, we have that reference to, these things happen between 3 and 4, and then the possibility that there's some kind of USO base in the San Pedro Channel. And here's the creepiest part about his story. What he's like, yeah, man, when I looked at the ships, I was able to connect with them in some way where I was able to tell them to go left, right, up, down. And they would move to my commands.
Wow.
And I just lost it when he told me that. I was like, what? And I never told a soul about that. And he said that without knowing I was even having these experiences.
That's incredible. I'm hearing this for the very first time. That's incredible. I believe that that some of these ships are actually run on consciousness, and that's how they can move so quickly, and that's how they maneuver, and how they can get across the galaxy so fast.
According to David Wilcock, that's how the Roswell ship was connected with the occupants from whistleblower testimony. And also, we used that chair and the craft from Roswell to create the Montauk chair.
Yep, the Montauk chair. And so, yeah, I've always believed that. And a lot of the cartoons that I've watched, and I'm just to say this, I'm a big cartoon fan, so I watch a lot of superheroes and things like that. And a lot of the crafts that you see in these shows are run on, the occupant, being it a Martian or a superhero of some sort. They put their hand on something and it interacts with them physically. It's a bioship, and so it actually moves with their mental commands.
Integrates with their DNA or their consciousness. And this is crazy. I was just about to bring this up and you already did it. You said in the shows they put their hands on something and it activates the ship. Supposedly there are photographs from the Wilcock lecture where you see the ET's handprints connecting into the ship, so that they can connect and become one. And that's just that's wild that they're showing that in kids' TV shows.
Kids' cartoons are really, really great, wonderful ways to get involved in this whole ET UFO world, because there's so much of it. Because kids believe it. I mean, they're not inhibited by the world yet. So when they see, if you talk to your kids, there's a good bet that they've already seen a lot of this stuff, and you start talking to them about this, and they'll actually have a really honest conversation with you about it, because it's unfettered by our own life, and because after a while life starts to bring you down, and you start to have to work and do all this stuff. But little kids get it, and they're real pure. So if you talk to them, I promise you're going to have an amazing situation with your children. Just talk to them about it, see what they know. So,
cool. So here's another neighbor experience. My next door neighbor from where my parents live, directly on the opposite side of the street from us, he had this wild experience when all I did was tell him that I was having some weird, I think they're UFO sightings. Like, I was really weird about talking about it with people because I didn't know what I was experiencing yet at the time. And he just got completely white, looked at me dead on, and said, I got a story for you. And he went on to tell me one of the most bizarre UFO stories that I think I've ever heard. So he lives near the canyon and all that, like the Horse Canyon, where I was talking about. Right. And he goes on to say around, I think he said it was 3:30 a.m. in the morning, that he woke up to the entire house just shaking, vibrating. He's a gun owner, and he was completely freaked out about this. And he proceeded to grab his gun, and he heard his mom and his sister just screaming.
Wow.
Like bloody murder. And he went down to the porch, and they were just there freaked out. And he basically went down to the porch, and he said he could see the wood just completely vibrating like crazy to the back porch where the canyon faces. And he said the trees were just moving around super violently. Like, he's never seen anything like that. And they call the cops. And so in my mind, I'm like, okay, the cops are going to tell him it's nothing. Just go back to sleep. You're crazy, blah, blah, blah. And they actually had this bizarre story about how, yes, sir, we've gotten many calls about this disturbance, and we're working on it right now. And my neighbor says, okay, so what is it? What's causing this? He said, well, we actually have a group of kids playing this prank where they're actually like a satanic cult. And they're driving out to this place in the canyon on this other street next to where we live on Doppelgrave. And I guess that they were in their trunk. They had some kind of sound generator that was emitting this frequency that was some sort of satanic frequency that was able to vibrate and cause disturbances. And I mean,
That's
666 is in the hertz frequency,
right.
And I have no idea if that could actually produce what was capable of doing that. But who knows? But that was the cops' story. And you know, it wasn't just standard story 2.0. Like,
Right.
that's wild.
Cops don't generally talk about things like that, and they definitely wouldn't talk about that with another civilian unless they were as freaked out.
Freaked out, yeah. Like, you'd have to be freaked out for a cop to actually tell you some kind of story like that. So I don't know if that was just a cover story, but it was.
It's a great cover story, though.
Yeah, but I mean, come on, like, that's pretty detailed.
Yeah,
regardless.
it's pretty detailed.
Yeah.
Wow, that's very unsettling. Was there any light associated with it, or was it just sound?
I can't remember if he said any light, but he's freaked out after this experience, and I had a feeling, some other of my neighbors had to be experiencing this phenomenon. I mean, it was right over my house, and it was apparently right over his house.
Right, and it's either a very, very large craft or several small ones, or maybe if these kids were doing this ritual or whatever it was. It's interesting to find out that there's kids in that neighborhood that I actually know where this is too, that would actually know how to do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we know sound can vibrate.
Yeah, but how would people generally know that? That's not something that you think about. It's like, hey, let's go out and get messed up on something, and then start vibrating the neighborhood. That's just not something that that's learned behavior. I mean,
it's unexplainable.
Yeah, that's really
add that
crazy.
to the high strangeness library shelf.
Yeah, that goes right up there.
Okay, so my next story is a family member. I'm not going to say which one, but they woke up and told me the next morning. They said, Brian, I have to tell you about something, this dream I had last night. I said, oh, okay, well, tell me. I said, so I woke up, and I don't know if it was real or not, but there was these two guys that showed up, and somehow, like, we ended up in this field where there was this, like, bonfire party, like, with a bunch of really tall, high crops, and they were all together, but I knew they weren't human. And
Wow.
I pretended that I wasn't human either. They were all in human form, but I pretended I wasn't human so I could fit in. And they're all drinking, so I was drinking with them, and blah, blah, blah. And they said, and then these two guys realized, oh my God, she's not one of us. And I'm pretty sure she said that this was said in telepathy.
Okay.
With their minds. And so this story is getting very vivid and real for a dream. And they said, and then all of a sudden they're like, we'll protect you, don't worry, we're not going to let the rest of them know. And one of them saying, the other one saying, no, we should tell them, she's not allowed to be here, and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, no, it's okay. And then all of a sudden they decide they're going to start jumping. And they leave the bonfire, and they start jumping, like literal like portal jumping.
Oh, portal jumping. Okay. I was
And
thinking
keep in
something
mind,
else.
jumping, that term I'd never heard any other whistleblower talk about that term until Corey Good used the term jumping
Right.
to describe that. And in the rest of the dream, they were just jumping from place to place, to all these different places like around the world, I guess. And it was just a really wild story to have a dream to happen during that time. And this family member does not watch any sci-fi or have any interest in any of these things to even in this family never used the word portal, wormhole,
Right.
anything like that. They only used the term jumping.
Wow.
And I always remember that dream, and I always thought it was very interesting. Do you have
It's,
anything to add to that?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because a lot of people have extraterrestrial or UFO experiences or some sort of, even we can call it demonic issue, and they have never watched science fiction. They don't like it. They don't like horror films. They have no. So can you imagine what it would feel like to be somebody who's never had any of the experiences and just kind of goes along their whole life not really believing this, and then something really strange happens to them and they have no category to put it in. Mm-hmm. And it's just got to be terrifying. I mean, I was lucky when my things happened to me. I was very much involved and very much aware of the spirit world, of the extraterrestrial world, of the spirit, of all these things. So it freaked me out, but I could categorize it and say, okay, that's what that was. And so if you're out there and you're listening to our podcast and you're somebody who doesn't necessarily listen to any of this kind of stuff, and you've had these experiences, like I said, please let us know. We want you to we want you to be able to talk about it, even if it's just to us. We want to hear your story because I know how terrifying it can be. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, let's, really, and if you know somebody that's having these experiences, please let them know that we exist.
There's a group of people who are having them too.
Yeah.
Not just us. I mean, there's hundreds. I've had to hear hundreds of different people come forward for me to even feel comfortable about talking about this.
Right, me too.
Publicly.
Me too. Because it is, I mean, Linda Moulton Howe does a lot of work on abduction, and if you haven't read Whitley Strieber's book Communion, that's a really good start if you're new to this and you're not sure where to begin with all of this. There's a lot of information out there, and there's a lot of stuff on the internet, and I would honestly say that over 80% of it is really bullshit, and it's very distressing because I watch a lot of it, and I can spot it now. I know what to look for, and if there's certain telltale signs, and I'm like, nope, this is not.
Pretty much everything on YouTube in general.
Yeah, pretty much. If
so much of it is COINTELPRO, CIA operatives or some government agency creating these videos to spread disinformation.
If you see, and this is my big one, if you see a video that's out there and it has really, really powerful, frightening music attached to it, and then you see images of like all any of that big that stuff. It's like immediately that's a huge, ginormous, huge red flag.
Yep.
I won't watch those. I will watch them because I will watch them because I will let you know. Nope, not gonna don't watch those. If you see an image from a spaceship that is larger than a city, probably fake, because guess what? Even CNN or Fox would get involved if there was a ship that large. So, I just wanted to throw that one out there. So if you have, so please let us know if you're seeing that stuff.
So speaking of support group, Phil, you were talking about Linda Moulton Howe. There are actual regression hypnosis therapists out there. Barbara Lamb does it. I've met her. She's a sweetheart. Yvonne Smith. I actually did a group regression with her at the Conscious Life Expo. I know, at Contact in the Desert.
Wow,
did I tell you about this?
That. No, you didn't tell me that.
Oh, wow.
I want to do that.
Well, it was a group. It was in a room of maybe 300-400 people, and we all went into hypnosis, and I went back to the time where I had my missing time experience. in the story I told last episode with me and my car. And so only me and like one other person actually had like, maybe there was like 3 or 4 people that actually had a experience that they remembered, you know. Everyone else was just kind of like meditating.
Right.
So I went back into my regression, and what happened is that I was able to get deep enough in my hypnosis, my conscious hypnosis, to back to the time where I remembered coming down my parents' street in the car.
Wow.
I remember looking at the interior of the car. It wasn't the same car I drive now. That car got totaled like a year or 2 after that. And I remember the interior of the car, the clothes I was wearing, clothes that I haven't worn for years.
Wow.
Just the entire interior of the car was very vivid to me. It was like, because when you go into hypnosis, your mind recalls all that subconscious information very easily. It's just like a little data bank for your mind. And so I forget the term that Yvonne used, but I did have some curtains. I think that was it. It's like where my mind was like, okay, you're not ready to see this yet. And for some reason, the curtain came up right when I saw what I thought was the Imperial probe droid looking craft that came over my car, which could be a screen memory, possibly because there's a curtain there, which is like some kind of like a mental block. And then all of a sudden, this huge flash of white light that was so bright that I thought it was during the day. And what happened is I realized that I had this dream at this point with the huge flash of bright light. It was a dream I had like a year ago from this time, present time. And of me feeling the sensation of being floating in the air and the vibration of something lifting me up.
That's insane.
Right at the place where I had the missing time.
Wow.
There was no car there, but in my dream I thought it was during the day, so I didn't associate it with this event, missing time event, happening at night. And I was feeling my entire body shake during, and keep in mind I'm still at contact in the desert.
Right.
Remembering all this when this is happening inside of a room. I'm just tearing up, like crying, because the sensation is so real. My entire body is vibrating, remembering the sensation and being lifted up and just feeling the vibration of my body, something lifting me up, and I'm paralyzed. And then the curtain comes over and I couldn't remember anymore. And it was wild to realize that, okay, that wasn't a dream. That was something blocked out during my missing time experience. And that's very common for people who have experienced missing time or alien abductees. I don't know if I've been abducted by aliens. I don't have any conscious recollection of that. I do have very similar experiences to people who have the alien abduction syndrome because of my missing time experiences. But I will not go on record to say I'm an alien abductee because I don't have any information to prove that.
Right.
And I don't know what happened after that. And if I do another regression, I'm sure it'll come slowly and surely, which I may do in the future. It was very cool. It was a very, breath of fresh air to know that those experiences were linked. I also had another dream that felt extremely like the one I thought was a dream, but was in my regression, where I'm sitting in the front room with a bunch of friends, and in my parents' living room, I walk outside, I look up, I see a craft, I feel it starting to pick me up, that same sensation where something's lifting me up off the ground. I feel myself off the ground. I grab this fence post and I say, no, they're not taking me this time. This is all my dream. And finally, I feel like myself holding on for dear life,
Wow.
the exact sensation you feel of that. And then finally it lets me go. I get down back on my feet. I run into the living room and I yell, UFO, UFO. And everyone runs out and we all see it flying away. And that was a very vivid dream. I had another vivid dream in the same place at my parents' house, in the living room, of seeing these almost psychedelic wild colors, like a waterfall of these psychedelic wild colors flooding in from the sky. And feeling this intense sensation, and then all of a sudden feeling like everything got turned upside down, like the entire world. You know that feeling when you're upside down, you feel the blood rush into your head.
Yeah.
It was kind of like that, but times 10, 15, 20, like
Wow.
crazy. And I always associated that dream. This is the first time I've ever told anyone about this dream, because I
I'm
never
hearing
know
this
how
for the
to.
very first time.
I always was in fear that was the cataclysm in 2012. And I was in so much fear of talking about that dream to anyone that I never spoke about it, because I didn't want to consciously create that.
Wow.
However, I've now been under the assuming that might be some timeline in the future, possibly, of the consciousness shift event. If it happens all at one time, and we are going through some kind of ascension process, if it happens, whether it happens over time or at one specific time, or we move up in densities, that I could associate that with that process.
That makes sense. And, it's also possible that what you were seeing, remember that, human beings only see a small spectrum of the light spectrum that exists. Maybe you were seeing some light that you hadn't seen before. The universes don't necessarily have to be, the same direction that we are in. So the sensation of being lifted upside and feeling like you were upside down, maybe the universe that you were in, or the veil that you had lifted, positioned you in such a way that you were upside down, and because your body is used to being in one position, maybe you're in another one now, and it made you sick.
Well, I want to make it clear that the psychedelic rain or whatever coming from the sky, two separate dreams from my UFO dream.
Okay.
I had that kind of more psychedelic waterfall kind of dream when I was quite young, actually. This was way before all of my conscious UFO experiences. Okay. And I would go as far to assume that most people who have had, this is the way I've seen it in my research I've done on this. People either have a one-off sighting and never have any UFO contact again, or they've been having it their entire life.
Right.
That's what the research shows.
Yeah.
So I would not go as far as to think that I've had experiences my entire life. I've always been freaked out when I was a little kid, of the aliens they show on X-Files when I watched it with my parents. I mean, I was completely terrified of those.
Yeah.
And I didn't know why, but I was just like, my parents always told me how much it freaked me out when I was a kid, and could that be of something that I saw that was similar?
Okay. Yeah, and I mean that's also designed too. They always design these aliens to look like they're these monsters that are going to come and get you and snatch you out of your bed and take you and kill you and eat you and all these things. And that's not really what we're finding out now through all of these different whistleblowers and different contactees, that not all of these aliens, and I hate that term aliens, off-world people are actually are actually good. They're actually not bad people at all. They're very good people. They're very good beings. Think about it. If a civilization is just 100 years ahead of where we are now, think where we were 100 years ago. We were basically an agrarian society, in the early part of the 20th century, and in the last 100 years we've moved so quickly. So imagine what a race of beings would look like 100 years from now, or 1,000 years from now, or 10,000 years from now. So that's what we're not talking about millions of years. There are some that are millions and billions and possibly even trillions of years in advance of what we are. But if you think about all of the different, possibilities and, of what's out there, and people that look like us that may just be taller or shorter or have blue skin or green skin or red skin or whatever it is, they have an extra eye, they have, they don't have ears, they have a second row of teeth. Whatever the thing is, this human form, is very, very, or this bipedal form, I won't say it's human because it's not necessarily humanoid, is generally a really good form to use across the board. So by the time you get out into the cosmos, you start to see this form that we're in now replicated in various different ways. It has gills, it has fins, it has feathers, it has whatever the environment of the planet. It might be made of metal, it might be made of, carbon-based life is not the only kind of life out there. Anybody that's a Star Trek fan can tell you that. They've been silicon life and light life. And
see, that's what messes with me so much about, like, NASA, is like they're only looking for planets that could support carbon-based life.
Right.
Or like planets aren't habitable if they don't have any water. It's like
Right.
what?
How would yeah? And
We
so
have
let's say
things on this Earth that don't live on water.
right, and there are things that live in all water, and there are things that think about it, if a life form was based on silicon instead of carbon, you could live on a planet full of sand. And it wouldn't require water. It wouldn't require any kind of the things that we believe are the building blocks of life. The universe is so vast, and everything is so much different than we think it is. I can't wait to get out there and see what it all looks like. I'm really excited to NASA's trying this little Mars experiment. Well, I won't even get into that because that's just like a big, I don't know. I think it's a joke because I think we're already there. So, sorry, I went on and on there, but I felt I needed to get that out. So, Brian, do you have anything else that you want
I
to
have a couple more stories I want to get into real fast.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay, so I'm gonna get into some really high strangeness stuff right now.
Okay.
Buckle your seatbelts. Okay, so I have another story where I am driving with my family. We're celebrating like a birthday, I think, down to the Cheesecake Factory in Redondo Beach. It's in Redondo Beach or Hermosa Beach, like somewhere right around there. And we're driving down PCH. We get to the Cheesecake Factory. We have our order in. We're waiting for our table. We have one of those little buzzer things that tell you when the table's ready. And I'm outside with my dad, looking into the mist of you're in the beach area. We're there around 4 or 5, something like that. It's not quite night, but it's not quite day anymore. It's very, very, very overcast mist right in that area at that time. And so I'm looking into the mist and behind the Cheesecake Factory, and all of a sudden I just see these orbs blink in. They just appear. I see one, I see another, and I see another, and I see another. There must have been all one after each other, not in a row or any certain order. They just kind of blinked on, blink on, blink on, blink on, blink on. There must have been 5 of them. And these were close, it's not like they were stars off in the distance. I mean, this mist was thick, and these things were probably pretty close. I'm assuming maybe 60, 40 feet away, something like that. And then all of a sudden, I just black out. And not in the same way that I did in my head my car experience. It was next thing I knew, we were just driving home after dinner. I have no conscious recollection of eating, that we even sat down to have dinner. All I remember is being there before, seeing the orbs. Next thing I know, we're driving back. And that's not where it gets crazy. I can't even tell you how much time passed between that. I don't even know if we actually ate and there was missing time in the sense of hours, an hour and a half of eating or something, or if we just got back in our car and drove off. Wow. And on the ride back, I look out. I'm in the back left seat. I look out over the city. We're driving on PCH. There's a couple things about this memory that I personally think are a screen memory because they don't quite add up or make sense. I don't know what road we would have been on to see over LA, the entire LA city, because you can't see LA driving on PCH. So I look out to my left rear window, look over the city, and I see this huge dragon flying over the city.
Wow.
That was maybe the size of what we would think a T-Rex or a giant whale would be.
Okay.
I can't even tell you how many feet, hundreds of feet tall. And this thing was flapping its wings so viciously fast. And it was glowing too. It was this. It wasn't just flesh and blood. It was glowing, and it's looking over at our car, keeping up the pace with our car, going the same speed. And I'm looking at it, and then eventually I just have to stop looking at it because I know it's there, and it's not stopping. And eventually I just stopped looking out the window, and I knew it was still there, and just kind of tried to get in a conversation with my parents because I'm not about to tell them hey, look at that. A couple 100 feet tall dragon that's flying next to our car. But like I said, I think screen memories are a big part of the phenomenon. I don't think Los Angeles had a dragon that flew over the city that day. Perhaps I was seeing in another dimension,
Possibly.
if it was real. So yeah, that was that experience. I don't know if I talked about this last episode. I don't think I did, but seeing a couple orbs flying outside of my bedroom. A lot of my stories take place in my bed, looking outside, keeping guard over the house. And I remember seeing these two red orbs that flew outside the house, and I felt okay this time for seeing them for some reason. Whereas before, if I saw anything flying outside, I'd just be terrified, eyes glued open, ready for anything to come. Like, I thought these things were about to come, and just like, I heard they could walk through walls. Like, I was like, shit, my lock doesn't even mean anything on my door. So I fall asleep, and then I come to, and then I see this golden, luminescent, just all gold, vibrant, radiant being walking up to my door, my sliding glass door, and I see its hands. It puts its hand on the sliding glass door, and then comes through the door. Like, I close my eyes, and all of a sudden it's through the door, and it walks right up to me and puts its hand like up to me, I think, and I'm totally paralyzed. I'm not in fear. I'm not feeling really any emotion. I just feel really comfortable. And I see it put its hand up to me, and I black out again. Wake up in the morning like nothing happened. No recollection of what came next. No, not like any other ET experience I've ever heard described in the literature at all. And what's really weird, Phil, is I was looking at you. The being's form looked almost exactly like the outline of your body. And it's about the same height as you.
Hello.
I got kind of chills thinking about that. I didn't feel an ominous or negative intent from this being. Also, I don't think any negative beings can radiate gold like that. It's a very positive color. So. How tall are you?
5'2".
This thing was not as tall as like a gray would be. I mean, it was taller than a gray would be, which grays are said to be around 4 feet.
Yeah.
5'2" sounds about the height this thing was at.
Wow.
I mean,
you guys have to understand that I'm hearing this for the very first time, and also I'm watching him, and I'm seeing like a huge, like I'm seeing his. I saw the chills go through his body when he was telling this story. It's a very real event, and it's really scary, and it's.
I've had a weird intuitive feeling about this particular experience because I haven't had anything else like it. All the rest of the experiences were somewhat negative, I would say. This one's the only one intuitively I didn't feel was negative. And I always felt like it could have been me from a future timeline. It could have been someone in my life that loves me. Who knows? It could have been you, Phil, from the future, or an ascended form. But it was definitely a light being. It was a light-bearing being. It was not flesh and blood. I couldn't even make out any form, no wrinkles like you said in your experience. You saw the wrinkles of the gray,
right,
which was very vivid.
Yeah.
You know, for me, all I saw was this all gold, a little bit of black in there, I think, like some kind of outline. Then again, you know, it's like when you're paralyzed laying in the bed like that and you can't move any muscle in your body and all you can do is move your eyeballs.
Right.
That's your experience.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's that experience. I have another experience where I am with my buddy who had the fishing story. You know, and he went out on the golf course and had his experience there. So at this point, we're good buddies. Well, we've been good buddies for a long time, but now we're totally vibing on UFO stuff. And this is later on in my experiences. And we're outside. We're looking over the stars at his house. We're like, oh, it's a really beautiful night. You know, like, wouldn't it be really weird if just this giant UFO came over the sky and just blacked out all the stars? And no joke, a couple, 10 seconds later, that's exactly what happened.
Wow.
We were looking at all the stars, had enough time to be out there for 5 minutes, saw where all the stars are, looking really pretty in the night, and then all of a sudden, I swear to God, this craft just kind of went over and blacked out all the stars. So it was low enough to the point where it was you looked up and you saw it was more, because you know how when you look at the night sky, it's kind of really dark blue, kind of black.
Right.
But this thing, it just got pitch black. And it didn't stop there. I was like, we both got this chill, and we both looked at each other and just knew that something was up. And then I turn around and I look up on the top of his roof, and I swear I see this thing that it kind of flickered in the light, and it looked like a being standing on 2 feet, and it looked scaly, and I'm pretty sure it was a reptilian.
Wow.
A reptilian being, a bipedal lizard person. And it kind of flickered in the light, like it was kind of like this camouflage or something. And for any of you who've seen that movie, The Predator, the way that it kind of camouflages and you see it like flicker every once in a while when it's like walking around, that's pretty much exactly what this thing looked like. And it looked very muscular, like the kind of warlike reptilians that we hear about, where not the long snout, but more of the human-looking features, very muscular. I'm saying that's what other people have described, and I didn't see a full body of this thing, just that little flicker, but it was enough for me to kind of get that image.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
What amazing stories that you guys that you've been through. Amazing experiences.
Also, there's a possibility that I might have an implant in my leg. I'm not sure yet. I've gotten X-rays. It didn't show up, but maybe the X-rays don't show. I don't know exactly how the whole implant thing works as well as some other experts in the field, like Roger Lear. Dr. Roger Lear was the pioneer of humans having implants in their skin, and he passed away, unfortunately, a year or two ago. But my neighbor, who, so if you look at my leg, you'll see this thing that's about the size of like a quarter, and on the other side of my calf, so like where my shin is kind of. And if you push at it or try to get a better look at it, it all of a sudden just like disappears. And this has been happening for the last couple of years. I don't feel any different with it, or maybe I do. I don't know. My neighbor who had the experience of the vibrating house and and with the one with the weird police story, he's told me that he thinks that he has an implant as well. So just something else to add to the story that's a little
incredible
creepy edge there. So, it is what it is. To be honest, guys, I actually have more stories. But, I think we're going to wrap it up for this episode. To be continued.
Oh, my God. 3-parter.
Right. But, I hope you guys liked this episode. Be sure to like if you like this video. Leave us a comment. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Please do it. We want to see you.
And if I can, I'm going to see if I can try and add a picture of the photo, of the Coldplay photo.
Oh, okay.
On our YouTube. I'm going to see if I can edit it in there. I'm going to post that also on
Facebook?
On Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. We talked about that, right?
Yeah, we did.
Okay, just making sure. If you guys know the origination of the Sanskrit writing that was on Coldplay's guitar cabinets and drums at the Superbowl, let us know if you know what it is. If it is Sanskrit, which it looks like it is. If it's not, what it means. It could just say Coldplay. Who knows? But it could say something very different. I'm very interested to see what it says, because language and words have meaning, whether we understand them or not, or literally if they're in a different language or not.
Right.
They resonate in the universe. They have vibration. They have power. So, with that, we hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we will see you guys next time.